And Mark, now we get to, I want to say the fun topic, but I know that sounds horrible because a man,
No, it's a long time coming.
And here's the thing. Before I say this, and I know me saying the fun topic sounds bad, the thing I want to throw out there is we are not happy that Hue Jackson, everything that he went through, even with the losing his mom, all of that is horrible, and then losing your job is horrible enough.
Losing your job, but still getting paid. He's still being paid.
This should have happened before the season.
Yeah.
Had won only one game coming into this season. And it's just the Browns being the Browns. Before we get into who the next head coach should be, will it be Lincoln Riley? I want to ask you, what were your thoughts? Because in our MVP or our fantasy football text group, you put out there a tweet where Todd Haley could be fired. And everyone, Sean mainly, was like, oh, Ricky, looks like your prediction's going to be wrong. And it ended up being kind of right. Yes, I
you
said
got
that
part
Todd
of it
Haley
right and part of it wrong.
I got that he'd be fired. I just was 2 weeks off. That's what I'm going off
Well,
of.
you got that Hue would get fired. You thought that Todd Haley would take over.
I thought he was going to take, but I was not anticipating them being like, you're both gone. I thought they would say, well, Hue's gone. But both of them are gone. I was right that I knew he would get fired this season. That's what I'm going off of.
As he should.
What were your thoughts when you actually saw that Hue Jackson canned?
It's about damn time. And the reason is, I mean, the guy goes 1-15 and then 0-16. And you bring him back to say, oh, maybe something will turn around.
But they tied week one.
They did tie.
That's better than a loss.
They tied week one and they won 2 games. They did great. He did phenomenal this season compared to last season. I mean,
he doubled his
huge increase.
He doubled his win total from last year.
Yeah, so huge
you can't
increase.
double zero, but you get what I mean.
And the nice thing about that is it didn't matter. The team was still bad. And that's really what, and I think that this move was purely a GM trying to save himself by saying.
John Dorsey trying to save himself.
Yeah, Dorsey's going out there and saying, it's not me. I'm not the one making bad decisions. The coach is bad. And I'm going to show you because I got a good team out there, and there are good players on this team. They got rid of Carlos Hyde for some reason, but there are good players on this team right now. And he was saying, I know that Hue is going to mess it up, and I know that Todd Haley is going to be not the right kind of guy. You literally had 2 guys who... Well, you have Hue Jackson, a guy who constantly is throwing everybody under the bus. Terrible management. You have Todd Haley, who is aggressive and does not care about the structure and the organization here. He wants to be in control. What was being said about him was that he didn't care what anybody told him. He was going to do it the way he wanted to do it.
Well, then that comes down to, and I saw this from Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
He had no. You could tell Todd
Nobody
Haley
had respect for Hue Jackson.
Respect for Hue Jackson.
Not a single person out there had respect for him.
Had no respect.
I mean, they were even saying that
I got no respect.
That Baker Mayfield was essentially saying he was kind of happy about this.
Yeah,
that he's not going to miss Hue at all. You got Greg Williams as well, who's a very aggressive type of guy.
Speaking of that, take a second to have this sink in.
Yeah, Greg
Williams. Who was the orchestrator of Bountygate.
Yeah.
Who it's like, shun him, shouldn't be. He is now a head coach. Well, he's an interim, but he's technically a head coach.
Well, you think of...
Ryan Clark said, very smart guy. But really, it's like, this guy is terrible. He was a part of Bountygate.
Yeah.
And now he's back to being a head coach.
You think about the NFL and how they handled that. Nobody vilifies Sean Payton. And he was vilified for a season.
He threw Greg Williams under the bus.
He did, but Sean Payton got a year-long suspension. He was gone. And they bring him back, and life was great. Everybody loves Sean Payton. The Bountygate thing did not tarnish anybody's reputations. I do not care. We all know that Greg Williams did it. Greg Williams missed nothing, essentially. He did not... I mean, he went from the Saints, and then now he's for the Rams. He just moved on with his career. And part of it is because, unfortunately, he's a good defensive coordinator. He's good at what he does.
Plus, I'll be honest. I mean, there's a lot of people watching Hard Knocks that aren't football people that are like, how can he speak to the players like that? And how can he talk to players like that?
No, that's
how some of them respond. Like, the way... Yeah, Greg Williams on the practice field might scream and swear at you,
Yeah.
But for some players, for football players, that's how you get the most out of them somehow.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You bring up that we're not necessarily happy that something bad happened to Hue Jackson. And I don't think that's what it is at all.
I mean, the thing, and I'm bringing it up because everybody, ESPN, Fox Sports, like, it is terrible because of what, like, Hue Jackson, like, there was an actual person here. And, like, I don't know how I would feel if before the season I lose my mom and then I have to go to work.
Oh, yeah. I completely agree with that. I mean, football players have lost parents, have lost children, and went on to play.
Look at Brett Favre.
Yeah.
I lost my dad. Oh, best game I've ever had in my career.
It was kind of a shock that, 2 weeks ago, that we had a player whose child died and decided not to play. It was a big deal that a player said they weren't going to play. That was a big deal.
Because usually they said, no, I'll play because that's what Pops would have wanted me to do.
That's what Pops would have wanted you to do. That's what big, tough men do. They don't go home and cry. They go out there and they play, and then they cry in the locker room in the shower. And here's the thing. And I think all of that is fantastic, but I don't think a single bit of that needs to be said. Everybody knows we're not sitting there going, ha, your mom died and you're fired.
Yeah.
I hate that it's all being mentioned right now. Because it doesn't need to be mentioned. Here's what. Hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
What needs to be mentioned is he went 1-15, then he went 0-16. He is the second coach
should have been canned
to
right
ever
there.
have gone 0-16.
Should have been canned right
Should have
there.
been fired. He is 11-41-1 as a head coach overall when you include his time with the Raiders.
I keep forgetting he was with the Raiders.
Yeah, most of us do. And this was kind of like a stat pad for him for this season because he got a little bit of a test. They knew he wasn't going to be around. They should have just gotten rid of him. I don't know if it was that they were scared they wouldn't land a head coach that was good enough. And they were like, let's wait till we have some good pieces and then we'll do it. But there was no reason why Hue Jackson should have been here still. Just based off of performance, there was no reason for him to still have that job.
And here's the one thought before we go into who could be the next coach of the Browns is because I heard First Take, Stephen A. brought it up, the whole I feel bad for the guy even though he lost his job. And Stephen A. was like, this is something where you had to go in, and sometimes guys act differently because they're dealing with this and that. And with me, this is how I work. I'm not saying Hugh was supposed to be like this. I'm not even saying you're like this or you guys watching and listening are like this. This is how I would be. So let's say I'm the coach of the Browns. Let's say I work anywhere.
Yeah.
Let's say this, for example, MVP. And let's say, God forbid, I'm going to knock on the wood here, that it doesn't happen, that I lost my mom. I am the type of person where to deal with that, I would dive headfirst into this. And just, you know what? I'm going to do this so much that I'm going to be so busy that I don't even have the time to even think about what has happened and actually worry about what has happened. Basically distract yourself until you get over it. That's how I think because that's the kind of person I am.
Yeah.
But I realize not everyone is the same. The thing we're going to get into, though, the main topic of this, who should be the next coach? And the one I'm going to throw out to you first, maybe a shocker, because for you, an NFL guy, you came in here and was like, Ricky, who's Lincoln Riley? I haven't been watching college football. Who's Lincoln Riley? And I informed you he's the head coach of Oklahoma, Baker's college head coach from last year.
Which as soon as you say that, you're like, oh, yeah, I see where you're coming from.
Okay, I see that. I'm going to ask you, should Lincoln Riley, because Lincoln Riley came out, he's not interested in the NFL right now.
He might be tomorrow.
When they unload the Brinks truck to bring him in, should Lincoln Riley be the Browns' next head coach?
Yeah, and that's the thing you have to say. You can't be like, that sounds like no, I don't want it.
Well, it's like the Nick Saban thing of no, I'm not leaving, and then, I am out of here. I'm going to Alabama.
Right?
Nope, I'm out of Baton Rouge. I'm going to the Dolphins.
And it's to save your recruiting class, too, because that's the thing that a lot of people don't think about it. There's rumors, there's a lot of those recruits going, maybe I'll play somewhere else.
It's I was coming here to play for Lincoln Riley, not someone I don't know.
If coach isn't here, I'm not here. So that's a big deal right there. And the tough thing is, a coach needs something to draw them to Cleveland. Because you'll look at Cleveland's history, and there is nothing that makes you say, yeah, I want to go there. The only exception probably is for some reason Baker Mayfield's like, yeah, I'll be the guy to lead him back. But that's kind of because he knew that, hey, that means number 1 overall. So I don't really think that Lincoln Riley will be the guy who gets the job. And I think part of it is because I actually do somewhat believe him that he's going to stick around at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I think he does want to make his name there. I think he does want to have his recruiting class and his guys out there. And I do think that the quarterback connection is nice, but it's very difficult to make that jump from college to the NFL. He's a guy that needs to kind of get some more of that time under you and just kind of be okay in what you have currently.
So I'm laughing because SB Nation, kudos to SB. I just got it right now. Just kudos to SB Nation because I am looking at their list of top 5 candidates. And, like, it starts out, okay, Lincoln Riley. Like, okay, I could see it. Like, Lincoln Riley's the first one. Turned off my mic there. Then the second one, John DeFilippo.
Yep.
All right, quarterback guy. Then you got Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator with the Chiefs. All right, do the same thing that the Bears did with McVay. Then it's like, all right, Dan Campbell, assistant head coach of the Saints. And then who do they have for the 5th one? My boy, the guy from Hard Knocks, Bob Wiley, the offensive coach of the Cleveland Browns.
I would love it. Bob Wiley, they don't have to. They didn't stretch back in the day.
What was that? World War I? Stretching World War I and World War II. They didn't have all this time to do that stretching.
It's like, you think I stretch? I don't stretch.
Or I can do it. Hut hut.
Yeah.
Hut hut.
He's one of my favorite parts of Hard Knocks.
And I like how it here, the thinking man's choice. And it says Bob Wiley is a treasure. And the Browns would be foolish to let him leave. And that means making him head coach. Well, maybe.
It's just the kind of thing of imagine his press conferences. Would be fantastic. Why did Baker get hurt? I don't know. He was probably stretching or something. You should stretch.
Or thinking back to Hard Knocks. All right, guys, we're going to... You see this gorilla? That's a nice offensive lineman stance. It made me laugh.
He's great.
You know what? Kudos to... I'm going to give Christian DeAndrea. Kudos to you, my friend, for putting Bob Wiley on your list as a top 5
Should be
candidate.
number 1.
All right, I like how... No. It says 4 realistic candidates and 1 dream option.
And it is a dream. It sure is.
Oh, man, that made me... But Lincoln Riley, getting back to it, I think you're right. He's going to stay at Oklahoma this year because I do believe him when he says he wants to do something. Now, in a few years, when it's like, hey, this Oklahoma thing ain't really working out without a guy like Baker, all right, maybe I start thinking about the NFL. If it's not Baker Mayfield, who's on your mind? Because to me, maybe it's because it's early. I don't know if there is a guy right now that I'm saying that should be the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns because it kind of goes back to what Colin Cowherd said. He said he was talking to Jimmy Johnson on Sunday before the Sunday things that they had to do for Fox Sports.
Yeah.
And Jimmy said, you don't fire. He said, I was always on the idea, you don't fire a guy unless you automatically have someone in mind. Unless you have, that's the guy I want, don't fire him because you don't want to be like, all right, now open search. It should be you fire him because, okay, I'm going for that guy. I have this guy in mind. Yeah.
I have a few options that I'm thinking. The first one I want to put out there, because I do think it is a realistic option and the NFL would hate it, is Greg Williams. And the reason for that is I don't necessarily want him to get it.
So this is an audition is what you're saying.
Yeah, this is his audition. They were saying in the Chicago area that part of the reason John Fox lasted an entire season was they didn't want to give Vic Fangio an interim job as a head coach because if they did that, they have to make him the head coach or let him go.
Yeah.
It's hard to make a guy interim head coach and then say, all right, now go back to where you belong.
Exactly.
So this is going to do one of two things. If the team plays up for their interim coach, a way that many teams do, Greg Williams might just kind of stumble his way into a head coaching job for the Cleveland Browns. And what is the good part of the Cleveland Browns? Defense. They've been looking very good on defense. They've got flashes on offense, but they're not quite there yet, especially when you've traded guys like Josh Gordon, Carlos Hyde, things like that. So you have some flashes of what can be good about this team, and Greg Williams kind of is the piece of the puzzle. Now, you look at a team like the Buffalo Bills when he was their head coach, things went okay, but not great there. You look at Bountygate, is that worth it? But like I said, I really feel like the NFL has just skimmed right past it. And maybe this could be his redemption. I don't necessarily think so, but this could be potentially be a redemption arc for him. I think that the NFL would not do anything to try and stop it because they really kind of can't. So I think it's possible.
Here's the main thing that I think is, number one, I don't think Greg Williams, I don't think this is an audition for him. I don't think he's getting the job at all. And the reason why I say that is two things. First off, in order for him to get the job, Baker has to progress. And Baker, with Todd Haley and Hue Jackson, looked really good that first game, has regressed since that first game.
And it's going to be tough now because this offense is like what's going on the offensive side of the ball.
Like, when I was listening to the conference with Dorsey and Haslam, which is funny because I can't remember who I was listening to. It might have been Cowherd. It might not have been, but it's like, no, it was Dan Lebitard on Highly Questionable. He's like, oh, do I believe Jimmy Haslam? No, because he is talking. And I don't believe Jimmy Haslam with whatever he says.
Yeah.
But when I was listening to their press conference, the son of Greg Williams will now be the guy calling plays, I believe. And when John Dorsey was like, yeah, I believe he called plays. No. You either know or you don't. Like, if you're saying I believe, he didn't call plays for a game.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the true decider of how does Baker do with you at the helm? Because what I think is going to happen, any guy that's a defensive-minded coach, take him out of the equation. The Browns are going to look at the LA Rams and say, look what they did. We got to find our Sean McVay. That's what we need. We need a guy who we can link with Baker, much like the Rams. All right, we have Jared Goff. We're not moving on from him. We got to make this work. And it's the exact same situation. Number one picks. They had another guy that they could have taken. Sam Darnold, Carson Wentz, that actually in some cases are looking better. Carson Wentz has actually been to a Super Bowl, although he was injured for that Super Bowl, but helped him get there in the regular season. But I think they're going offensive. And some of the guys that I'm seeing, the first one I'm going to throw out there makes sense, but will he leave? Josh McDaniels. The reason why I say this is because why did McDaniels spur the Colts? Because to me, he didn't want to deal with the Colts owner, like the Colts ownership and the Colts as a front office.
So you think he would want to deal with the Browns?
Here's the thing. Like, hear me out. The Browns don't say whatever you want about Jimmy Haslam. He's not a Jim Irsay. Also, when Josh McDaniels was in Denver, that was terrible because that was basically, hey, like even like later on when John Elway got there and he was pushed out, it was basically like, hey, here's this guy, work with him. This is who I want. Or like the whole Tim Tebow debacle because Elway didn't want Tebow, but Josh McDaniels.
Well,
did,
Elway wasn't there when Tebow got drafted. Josh McDaniels wanted Tebow.
Yeah, and I thought later on when
Elway showed up, he was like, "Get this scrub off my team.
Get him off my team." I'm not saying that Elway was there when they drafted him, but Josh McDaniels with the Browns would only have to worry about one thing, and that is X's and O's. And the way that it seemed, like the way that John Dorsey made it seem, is that there is open connection between him and the head coach, that they're always meeting, always talking. Now, in Hard Knocks, it kind of seemed like Hue wasn't the right guy because John Dorsey would be like, hey, oh, guess who texted me? Oh, you're talking about Ray Lewis texted you? Oh, no, just, oh, yeah, did this guy text you? Oh, no, just Josh Gordon, our wide receiver. Well, what did he say? Pretty much nothing. It's like, then what are you effing telling me this for? Like, add something to what we're doing, where it feels like John Dorsey was more on the, hey, how are we going to get better, where Hue Jackson at Hard Knocks was just like, la-di-da-di-da, I have a job.
I disagree a little bit about it being Jim Irsay that made Josh McDaniels not going there.
It's not all that. There was also a little scared of like, I'm safe here in New England. I'm safe here.
I think it's just that
I get to work with Tom
Brady. I think
Brady.
that it's some type of understanding, like you had said before as well, that he's going to be tapped next to be the successor to Bill Belichick.
And that is why I don't think it happens, but Josh McDaniels wouldn't be a bad fit. He gets to work with a young quarterback who has potential. John Dorsey would be a GM that, hey, I'm going to make the moves, but I'm going to ask what you want, and I'm going to get you the guys that you need, because my bottom line is to win football games. It would not be a bad hire, but that is also true. I don't know if I believe
in Dorsey as much that well either. I have a couple of options here.
Throw one.
Since I do have a defensive option as well, because I don't think that they completely ignore defense, because that is the strength of the team right now. But they'll need a good offensive coordinator to make it happen. The offensive one I'm going to go for is a guy who I said is one to watch out for last year. And was kind of, I think, potentially the Matt Nagy of this year, and that's Matt LaFleur.
I knew you were going to say that. I had a feeling. I was like, is he going to go with Sean McVay's guy? Under Sean McVay?
He's the guy who I said last year would be a big deal.
So are you officially coining him as this year's Matt Nagy? Like this offseason, he will be the Matt Nagy guy?
I think he probably will be. And you know, a tough thing when you look at obviously coming from the McVay situation was fantastic, and there was huge growth. And now we're looking at Marcus Mariota, the Tennessee Titans, and you need something to kind of spark that team forward. You need something to bring them out, and they've been doing well, and they've been picking up steam. And like you said, they're not that far behind from the Houston Texans. If they can start to make it happen, if they can start to push forward, if they can start to get this team going the way they actually need to get going and start to get a little bit more, because people kind of are forgetting, I think, about the Tennessee Titans, but this is a team that is very much in consideration. They're 3-4, sure, but they are one game out from being able to catch up to a team and get out there. The thing that they need to do, because this team is doing well on defense, they just need to finally hit their stride offensively. And I think that they definitely can, because they've got some good development from some wide receivers. They've had some progress as well out of the running backs as well. Marcus Mariota needs to be able to take that next step forward. And I think if these things happen, Matt LaFleur is a great option. If they don't happen yet, I think then we're going to have to put a pause for next year for him to be that great option.
LaFleur's a guy where I'm interested, but I put him and DiFilippo in the same category, to where they would be good with Baker, but I'm not quite, like with DiFilippo, I'm not quite sure if I'd be confident in him as my head coach. That's the only thing where it's like, I got to be convinced a little bit that, yes, they are the head coach. They should be the head coach.
Yeah.
Who's your defensive guy before I throw out the guy that I'm going to throw out?
My defensive guy is actually going to be Wade Phillips. Because you look at the Rams.
He's doing good things with the Rams.
Yeah, he's doing great things with the Rams. And Wade Phillips has had his opportunities to be a head coach. It's been a little while. You know, we're, what,
Dallas was the last
8 years,
one?
I think. 8-9 years from him being a head coach in Dallas. And he's got a winning record as a head coach. His struggles have really come from the postseason. But overall, as a head coach, he's got a winning record. He's a good defensive guy. He is a very competent, very smart coach. He has a lot of history. He's a Super Bowl champion as a coach. Not necessarily as a head coach, but as a coach. He's got a couple of AFC championships as well. He's got a lot of history. He knows what he's doing. Could this be a nice veteran presence to bring onto a young team and amplify that defensive side? Once again, they need an offensive guy to kind of match up with him.
The only thing I wonder with him is if Wade Phillips wants to be a head coach, or if in his mind he's like, hey, I'm a coordinator. Like I'm just going to do my coordinating thing. I do it very well. I know defenses because we even saw him as the interim in Houston. Yeah, he went 0-3, but it's like that was also when I don't think Houston was looking at them. They knew they were going to go after Bill O'Brien, I think. That was when Bill O'Brien came in.
Yeah.
But part of me wonders if Wade Phillips, you haven't been a head coach since 2012. It's been 8 years. If you wanted to be a head coach, don't you think he would have been a head coach by now?
I mean, he took a little bit of time off, moved to the Denver Broncos, which were good but not amazing. Denver Broncos had a bit of a change. Now he's at the Rams. I think he can easily get another shot to be a head coach again if he wants to.
Here's one that I'm going to throw out there that might be a long shot, but hear me out. Jim Harbaugh. The reason why I say that is I'm looking at a CBS article here, and it says, and I quote, "This one is going to make a lot of people in Michigan mad, but Wolverine fans are firmly entrenched in the idea of Harbaugh will never leave Ann Arbor. But I heard it floated around by Dave Jeremiah on NFL Network that it makes sense to at least consider. I'd like to remind them that many people were putting Harbaugh on the hot seat prior to this season because his inability to beat Ohio State and the other Big Ten rivals, or at the very least, starting to make waves about whether or not Harbaugh was the answer in Michigan." I say this because right now on the college side, when it comes to Michigan, they are doing well. They beat Michigan State. They're number 5 in the college football playoff rankings, I believe, that came out today. They play Penn State this week. That's going to be a huge one. If they win, they're still alive. If they lost, all right, it's another rival that Jim Harbaugh can't beat. But I'm looking forward to that Thanksgiving weekend game when they play at the Horseshoe in Ohio State. If he loses to Ohio State yet again, how is that going to be taken? That is what I am looking at, because the last 3 years, I have to double check. I don't think he's ever beaten. Yeah, he lost last year, 2016. Let's see. I don't care about his recruits. He lost that year. 2015, his first year, he lost that year. So he's never beaten Ohio State in the game, as they call it. However, this is a guy that in the NFL, except for his last year of 8-8, is a playoff coach, a Super Bowl coach. Yeah, he didn't win it, but he was this close to winning it. Yeah, play away from winning it. And he's only known conference championships and Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And he can develop Baker Mayfield. He's a guy, if Michigan loses to Ohio State and their playoff hopes are done, I would not be surprised if he is turned onto the hot seat, and if the Browns don't see that and go, hey, you know what? Let's try to get him to be our head coach, because that is a guy that can fire up this team and maybe be the guy to end the head coaching curse for the Browns. Now, will it happen?
Possible.
Probably not, but it would be a good one for the Browns if he was their head coach.
And I think in a way it makes sense, because you think of kind of the organizations and franchises and colleges or whatever that really kind of make sense when it comes to football. 49ers, because they've got some great quarterbacks and some great histories and Super Bowl wins. You have the Michigan Wolverines, which really represent college football very, very well, especially because of some of those storied rivalries. And the Cleveland Browns, a team that does really represent football. They are
until their team was taken away from them.
Yeah, and then they got it back. That's very impressive to be able to get the team back. Doesn't happen too often. So in that case, like, sure, I can see it. I can see him wearing a brown.
And then we get the Hardball 2 times a year.
That would be nice.
We get Jim and John 2 times a year.
That could really be a good reason why he doesn't want to do it.
Because he doesn't want to go up against John twice a year?
Doesn't want to play his brother all the time. How annoying would that be? Or you had to play him in the Super Bowl. That didn't go well.
We get Jim and John twice a year. Plus, could you imagine the storyline of the Harbaugh being the brother, Jim the savior versus John the traitor? Because the Ravens were the old Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not going to say it's not possible. It definitely is. Because last year I was saying that Harbaugh still needs to get his quarterback, and then things will happen. Things will be a little different.
Which Shea Patterson and things aren't clicking for him.
Exactly. Now he's got it, so things aren't working well. I still don't see him getting fired right now from Michigan, but maybe it does get hot.
Gotta wait for that Ohio State game. I want to throw out one at you that I did not expect to see, but it's on the CBS article. I'm just going to throw it out and get what you think.
Yeah.
They put Mike McCarthy. If he gets fired by the Packers, does Mike McCarthy become the head coach of the Browns?
I hope not. Mike McCarthy's not a very good coach. He's a guy who's just been completely propped up by the success that is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is the reason why McCarthy is still around. He's the reason why he's still got a job. So it's possible because they'll be like, oh, Aaron Rodgers, he's good. So that's certainly possible, but I don't know. I don't know about it. I also don't know that he's really going to get fired.
Yeah, that's one where I'm like, whoa, I mean, really? Or like it says here, according to Steve Wycliffe, I hope I said that right, of NFL Media, intended McCarthy on the list of possible replacements for Jackson. But that's even like, would he even be on there? Would he leave the Packers for the Browns?
No, there's no leaving the Packers. It would only be if he got fired.
That'd be dumb. You're leaving Aaron Rodgers to go to Baker Mayfield. Yeah, that's real smart. So
yeah, it's only if he gets fired.
It's only if he does get fired. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below. What do you think of the Hue Jackson firing? Who are some candidates that you would like to see the Browns look at this offseason? And to throw what Mark said, do you think Greg Williams gets the job after being the interim the rest of this year? Let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section.